Can you imagine how many images and videos there are of megastar actor Timothée Chalamet? There are over 20,000 in the Getty Image Library alone. I mean, we even have footage of his adolescent alter ego, rapper Timmy Tim. If you're a high-profile person living in modern society, then there's most likely countless images of you available to anyone with an internet connection. But this hasn't always been the case. Take the first Empress of Korea, for example. Even today, 130 years after her death, no one really knows what she looked like. There are a few photographs and paintings that we think might be her, but these are quite contentious. And to this day, no one knows for sure if it's actually her or not. Even in life, she was a private, deeply mysterious woman and didn't attend many public events. Some say she was afraid of the public knowing what she looked like. And the mystery surrounding her runs deeper than that. To start with, she wasn't given the title of Empress until years after she died. In life, she was known simply as Queen Min. And that was literally the only name she ever had. Min is a clan name, kind of like a surname. To this day, we don't know what her first name was or if she even had one. And yet, this enigmatic woman was a total badass who would forever change the course of Korean politics. Hello my friend, I'm Aslan Pahari and this is Assassins, the show where we tell the stories of history's most shocking assassinations. And today, it's the story of Queen Min, Korea's first empress. Min was a progressive, intelligent queen who set about modernizing Korea from within. She was determined to drag the so-called Hermit Kingdom kicking and screaming into the 20th century. But in doing so, she enraged a neighboring superpower, so much so that they decided that the only thing left to do was assassinate her. In the end, Min was brought down by a group of men who weren't prepared to loosen their grip on power for some upstart Korean queen. This is her story. It's October 1895 and the Korean queen has had better mornings. The sun hasn't even come up yet and already there's an angry mob outside the palace, baying for her blood. And within the mob are a group of ronin, unaffiliated, masterless samurai who have been recruited to assassinate the queen. Now, it's not like the palace is unprotected. About 400 soldiers guard the complex, and for a while, they defend their territory. Gunfire is exchanged, one loyalist confronts the mob head-on but is quickly shot and killed. But before long, most of the guards abandoned their posts. With this resistance swept aside, the assassins move quickly through the palace, blocking exits as they go. They need to find the queen and find her fast. But as it turns out, that's easier said than done, because no one really knows what she looks like. She's private, doesn't attend a lot of public events, and unusually for a queen, there are almost no photographs or paintings of her. Unsure of their target, the assassin's search is indiscriminate. It quickly turns ferocious, brutal. They beat palace staff for information. Women caught in the frenzy are dragged by their hair and thrown off verandas. As the assassins close in on the royal quarters, the few remaining loyalists try to blockade her inner sanctum. These men are shown no mercy. They're kicked, punched, and thrown down the palace's long flights of stairs. One courtier has his hands cut off and bleeds to death. Finally, the mob arrives in a room where they find about 30 of the queen's court ladies huddled around a bed. And there, hiding underneath the bedding, dressed exactly the same as the other court ladies, they find a woman. They drag her by the hair from her hiding place, and in spite of the brutality, she maintains her composure. She is completely calm in the face of terror, which tells the assassins all they need to know. They found her. This is the Queen. But how did the Queen end up with an angry mob storming her palace and Ronin assassins at her door? Well, the story starts 30 years earlier, when a 12-year-old boy ascends the throne. The previous king of Korea had died suddenly and was only 32 years old at the time. He had no children and hadn't named an heir to the throne. So, in the aftermath of his death, there's a bit of a power tussle to determine who had the right to select a new king. Now, you don't need to know the detail of how this all played out, and to be honest, it's not that exciting. All you need to know is that in the end, this 12-year-old boy, King Gojong, gets the gig. Now, if I got to be king at 12 years old, I would have pushed bedtime back a few hours. But no one was going to let a 12-year-old actually rule the country. King Gojong was ruler in name only. His dad, Grand Internal Prince Hyangsun, or Hyangsun Daewongun to the boys, does the actual work of running the country. Now, the story gets a little complicated, so to make it easier for you, I'm going to give everyone nicknames. So, Hyangsun Daewongun, let's call him Big Daddy. And King Gojong, we'll call him the Party King. This will make sense in a moment. Big Daddy is a deeply conservative man. He doesn't like change and is determined to hold on to power. So when it comes time to find the Party King a wife, around the time of his 15th birthday, Big Daddy has a strict set of criteria. The would-be queen has to come from a noble background, and yet her family can't be politically ambitious. Big Daddy wants to keep the Party King on the throne and doesn't want to risk appointing a queen who might look to seize power for herself. These are tricky criteria to meet, but eventually Big Daddy finds a woman who he thinks is perfect for the young king. Her father is dead and she has no brothers, so there's no immediate family who might threaten the Party King's rule. She's also pretty and seems unthreatening, a perfect would-be queen. Her name is Min. First-hand accounts describe her as being slender with glossy raven black hair and pale skin. Big Daddy admires her poise, her intelligence, her conversational power. That's right, Min is clever, but so what? At no point does Big Daddy consider that the queen herself might be politically ambitious. It's an oversight he will live to regret. Now, the Party King barely registers any interest in Min. She may be beautiful, but it's a classic modest beauty. He's attracted to a different sort of woman entirely. On his wedding night, he, very much a teenage playboy on the loose, ignores his new bride. Instead, he spends the evening with a concubine. How rude. It's a decision that sets the tone for the early years of their marriage. The Party King spends his days and nights drinking at banquets and royal parties. See, I told you the nicknames would make sense. Queen Min, on the other hand, spends her time reading books, including those written using Chinese characters, a privilege usually reserved for upper-class men. Queen Min uses her newfound privilege to educate herself, studying history, science, politics, philosophy, and religion. She rejects the expectations of Korean high society that the new queen will dress in high fashion and host tea parties with princesses. Around the time of her 20th birthday, Queen Min starts to take an interest in politics, and it soon becomes clear that she has taught herself well. She knows about the world and is politically astute, with a sharp intellect that allows her to soon wield more power than her husband, the Party King. And she doesn't waste any time consolidating that power, placing family members and loyalists in important positions within the court. Big Daddy sees it all. He's still technically ruling the country on behalf of the party king, a position that he's held since his son came to the throne. But it's not long before Queen Min and her advisors start to pressure the party king into taking power for himself, which he does. Way out of his depth, the party king leans on his wife's smarts to rule the country. Big Daddy must have been so annoyed he didn't see this coming. More and more, he's on the outer, watching as the party king grows to admire his wife's powerful intellect and political know-how. Min is effectively in charge. The young king has cleared her way. But in doing so, he gets caught between the hugely different politics of Queen Min and Big Daddy. Queen Min is politically progressive. For a long time, Korea has been known as the Hermit Kingdom. It's tended to keep to itself, as isolated from the rest of the world as possible. But Min wants to modernize Korea, and she wants to develop a closer relationship with Japan and the West in order to do so. Min implements progressive reform. She builds schools, including an English school run by American missionaries. She begins the process of modernizing Korean agricultural practice, and she oversees the construction of a network of telegraph lines between Korea, China, and Japan. Min also wants to modernize the military. Even though Japan and China are local rivals, Min needs to draw on their knowledge. She even enlists Japanese experts to train a regiment of the Korean army. It's a gamble asking for advice from your traditional enemies, but she sees no alternative. Min's progressive politics put her in direct conflict with Korea's ruling class, most notably her father-in-law, Big Daddy. He wants to keep Korea isolated from the rest of the world, but the party king backs his queen. He's moved from admiring Min's abilities to respecting her character to falling in love. Aww. But this only makes the triangle of Min, the party king, and Big Daddy even more tense. Big Daddy doesn't get it. This woman is not what he bargained for. The queen is supposed to live a different sort of life, focused on fashion and high tea. But Queen Min is the very subversion of such expectations. As her influence grows, it's no secret that Queen Min has become more powerful than the party king. She's the one calling the shots. But it's a difficult time for the queen, and there are forces conspiring against her. There's widespread discontent across the country and a deep anxiety about everything changing all at once. Japan, China, and Russia continue to tussle for regional dominance, with much of the battle playing out in the Korean peninsula. Min knows too well that the greatest threat to Korea comes from Japan, and so she turns to Russia for support. Japan is furious. Its government turns against her, and Min loses the support of the pro-Japanese members of her court. Oh, and the regiment that Queen Min insisted be trained by the Japanese? Their loyalty seems to lie with Japan, not the Queen. In the weeks leading up to Queen Min's assassination, the Japanese government turns up the heat. They appoint a new envoy to Korea, and it quickly becomes clear that he's not there to make friends. Miura Goro is a former soldier and military commander. We'll call him the Puppet Master. At first, the Puppet Master doesn't want the job. He loathes politics and has no interest or experience in the ways of international diplomacy. He rejects the posting 3 times before eventually being convinced to take it. When the Puppet Master arrives in Korea, he doesn't warm to Queen Min. He concedes that she's clever, but that's hardly something he admires in a woman. He's a man of the late 19th century, a military man at that, and has likely never dealt with such a strong woman before. Around the same time, Queen Min starts making moves to weaken Japan's influence in her court. Less than a month after the puppet master arrives in Korea, Min orders the regiment of the Korean army trained by the Japanese to be disbanded. The puppet master sees what she's doing. Next, she'll remove the pro-Japanese members of her court, opening the door for Russian influence. And as Queen Min seeks help from Russia to maintain independence against Japan, the puppet master finds the decision to end her life very easy. He wrote, "This was a matter I decided in the space of 3 puffs on a cigarette. I made my decision and resolutely carried it through. I was surprisingly unconcerned about the government at home. Whether my behavior was right or wrong, only heaven can judge." Unsurprisingly, the puppet master and Big Daddy soon become allies. They have a common interest after all. They both want to take out the Queen. And before long, they recruit another co-conspirator, Japanese expat Adachi Kenzo. Let's call him the mob boss. The son of a samurai, the mob boss first traveled to Korea as a war correspondent, going on to establish the Keijo Shimpo, a Japanese language newspaper. But the journos hired by the mob boss aren't your typical reporters. Many of them come from a group of Japanese men living in Korea known as the Soshi, aggressive thugs with a thirst for political violence. These thugs refer to Queen Min as a fox or vixen, and in the weeks leading up to her assassination, the puppet master calls for young men to join him on a fox hunt. With the mob boss and his violent thugs on board, the plot to assassinate the Queen gathers momentum fast. The original plan was to carry out the assassination in mid-October, but the assassins hear a rumor that the Queen is onto their plan and is readying a counterattack herself. So they decide to move the plan forward by a week. It all kicks off in the dead of night. It's 2 a.m. and a group of armed men turn up at Big Daddy's doorstep. They speak to him for several hours, and he gets their word that the party king will be kept safe from whatever's about to play out. With that agreement in place, the mob sets off for the palace. They gather men along the way, and by the time they reach the palace gates, it's made up of the mob boss's journo thugs, some disaffected civilians, and those Korean soldiers trained by and largely loyal to the Japanese. There are also Japanese soldiers, policemen, and apparently a group of ronin, unaffiliated, masterless samurai who have been recruited to assassinate the Queen. And so the mob begins their fox hunt. After a frantic, brutal search of the palace, the assassins find the Queen hiding underneath the bedding, protected by her court ladies. But it's no use. The court ladies are simply cast aside. In spite of the brutality, Queen Min maintains her composure. She is completely calm in the face of terror, which tells the assassins all they need to know. They found her. This is the Queen. The assassins throw her to the ground, and with one sword strike to the head, it's over. At the sight of her slain body, the court ladies collapse in anguish. But before they have a chance to mourn, the assassins drag the Queen's body to a nearby forest, douse it in gasoline, and set it on fire. The day has barely begun, and already the Queen is dead. In the hours after the assassination, the palace is looted. As the mob slowly leaves, ordinary people, just starting their day, begin heading over to the palace to see what all the commotion is about. Around 6 a.m., the puppet master and Big Daddy arrive. The puppet master describes Big Daddy as beaming with delight. Big Daddy presents the party king with a document that outlines how Queen Min had been responsible for her own death. The party king refuses to sign it. The woman he loved has just been brutally assassinated. He tells his father, "You can cut my fingers off. I will not sign your proclamation." Big Daddy reclaims the power of the throne, silencing anti-Japanese sentiment. A move that ultimately weakened Korea in its struggle for independence from Japan. Over the weeks and months that follow, the Japanese government arrests all the assassins, but then clears them of all charges. 56 men were charged. All of them were acquitted. The puppet master goes on to have a successful career in the Japanese government, eventually becoming the Minister for Communications. Over the decades that followed, Japan would flex its control over Korea time and time again before annexing the peninsula in 1910. Queen Min had been right in predicting the threat from Japan. The party king, traumatized by his wife's death and beaten down by his father, flees to safety in the Russian embassy in Seoul. When he emerges from this self-imposed exile a few years later, he establishes an independent Korean empire with himself as emperor. And he posthumously gives Queen Min the title of Empress, the first empress in Korean history. Thank you for watching, my friend. If there's an assassination you'd like us to cover in the future, please drop it in the comments. I hope to hear from you soon, my friend.